Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Nguyen, and the Insider crew.
Welcome everyone to episode 104. We are back at PCA's national headquarters. Around the table, we have Manny Allman and Damon Lowney, and of course at the controls, we have Robert Forsyth, and we've got a lot to cover today. So let's jump right into it, Manny.
Oh, we're fresh off Tech Tactics. This is the Tuesday after Tech Tactics, so that's fresh in our minds. Big shout out to Robert, though. A lot of people recognize him who came to Tech Tactics because he was running all the AV stuff on Saturday, capturing all the presentations. So everyone who was furiously trying to take pictures of the screens or take down notes, know that they should all at one time or another appear on YouTube as we slowly release them, and you'll be able to watch again. As one person said as they were leaving, they said, I had no idea that there was going to be this much information dumped. He said it was just so much, and I was grateful for it, but I'm not sure how much I'm going to remember. So I told him, I said, well, it will be on YouTube, so you can watch it again if you have any questions.
So I'm going to share how I broke a cardinal rule, rewind a little bit before Tech Tactics East, and as you may have heard when we were talking about my Cayenne and my E1 and the water pump, my wife oftentimes say I pack too much on the agenda, and I've been on travel a lot, and the water pump needed to be done for the most part so that we could have its maiden voyage right before Tech Tactics East. And normally I don't do that. Normally I have a project, I work on it, have plenty of days before and after in case something gets wrong. The good news is I pulled Manny along to ride with me to Tech Tactics East, sort of a Thelma and Louise situation where if I'm going to get caught on the side of the road, hey, so at least have someone with
which?
me.
Who's Thelma?
A lot of confidence, too. At every stop, he would be smelling the hood for antifreeze.
I remember when I did my oil pan, it was before the second French Lick parade.
Uh-huh.
I think you passed me
yeah.
coming back because
Yeah.
I stopped to check my oil level because I had literally done the oil pan extension just before the parade trip, and I was on edge.
We had, a E1 Cayenne water pump takes a technician probably an hour or two at the most. We were filming, so I knew it would take a little bit longer. So I really had like 3 days, a couple hours per day to work on it. But we really did button it up the day before.
And there was no drama. It wasn't like Rob's water pump where we kept on breaking things as we were trying to fix it.
Yeah, thankfully no drama. And as Manny said, every time I got out of the car, during a coffee break or getting gas, I just kind of put my nose to the hood just to see if I could smell anything sweet.
You're like, is it overheating?
No,
it's not.
Yeah. So the good news is it was rock steady at 180 degrees, actually a little bit below that. I don't know if it's a combination of highway driving and or the water pump and or the air filters, and also correcting. You'll hear about this when you watch a video later. There was one of the air hoses underneath the intake that was poorly repaired back in the day by, I guess, whoever did my coolant pipes. That was before I owned it. And anyways, I repaired that, and the car, I never get really over 300 miles on a full tank on my Cayenne. I do a lot of city driving too, but on this trip I was quite amazed that I almost got to 400. Well, I think we got gas at the Maryland house or whatever at 380, and I still had gas left. So who knows? I don't know if it's just highway driving, but we'll put the real test over the next month or so.
My theory was the friction on your old water pump is the reason.
Seriously,
Although,
right? I mean,
it was pretty sticky. I don't think it was that results in 80 miles.
I don't think so either, but it was definitely, you used a lot of effort to turn it. So thankfully it all went well. Shout out to Goldmeister Tech Peter Smith, who pretty much walked me through it, and he instills confidence that I can do stuff like this. And so all good. Now, how about your hose adventure with your Cayman?
Yeah, so over the weekend I did do some work, and the hose is now basically finished, but it still a couple little details to do. So I'll share right now this video I filmed with Bogdan, and I'm pretty sure it explains what I did to the hose well for our listeners, but this is something that YouTube viewers will get a little bit more info. So cue that in, Robert.
So we're here in the podcast studio with car parts on the table because the garage right now is ground zero for a Cayenne water pump replacement, a video which will be coming soon. But what I wanted to share with you all is if you've been listening to the podcast or watching, you know that I've been struggling to get the air oil separator hose to fit my car with a Motorsport air oil separator and IPD's 82 millimeter plenum and 82 millimeter throttle body. To do that, I had to remove the Motorsport air oil separator hose, which attaches to the front left, or I guess driver's side front of the engine, and then goes straight across into the air oil separator. Now, a stock Cayman would have a hose that loops down behind the plenum hose and then attaches to the outside of a regular air oil separator. So what I've done is I bought a hose for the regular air oil separator, of which these are pieces, and chopped those up along with my Motorsport hose, and I'll be fitting them all together to make one hose that fits onto my car with its modifications. I know that at least one person has been asking about what my solution will be, because they might go down that route, and my solution will be epoxy to join these hoses together. Now, I have a test section here, which that's where the joint is in these two pieces, and you can basically tell these are not coming apart. The epoxy is rated, I believe, to 250 or 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It should be lower inside my engine bay, crossing fingers on that. And basically, I've just joined these two hoses together, and that's what I'll be doing with these pieces. And it will look something like this once they're all joined together. So this shape here offers enough room to go through the intake runners like they normally do, but then it curves this way sooner than the stock hose or the Motorsport hose, and around the fitting for coolant on the oil cooler, and then around the oil cooler itself, underneath the plenum hose, and then up over to the Motorsport air oil separator. The last thing that I need to do to make this fit is take this fitting and turn it so it's this way. Now, how I'll do that, which I've also tested on another piece I won't be using, is splitting the hose somewhere. I'll determine where that split will be to relieve the pressure on this so I can actually turn it. And then I will put epoxy down that seam and then hose clamp it together so that the hose will maintain a vacuum. Now, that's what I'll be doing. We'll find out pretty soon whether I was successful.
All right, so that was basically what I did over the weekend. So what you just saw was the assembly, how I would assemble the hose, but the epoxy is now on, and it's holding really well. It's airtight, which is very good, and the bonds are really strong. But I didn't take any pictures and want to show you guys what I did until I know it's going to work. So the next thing to do is just to be extra careful. I bought some really large heat shrink, and I think it was 3-to-1, and the diameter is like 1.5 or 2 inches. It's pretty large heat shrink. And I'm going to shrink it over the epoxy joints, and also in the area over the oil cooler, because I think that heat shrink will actually act as protection, so it won't scratch a hole through the hose.
Does the hose sit across anything that gets extremely hot?
The oil cooler.
The oil cooler.
But
okay.
In talking with my old mechanic in San Diego who has dealt with this issue and the Motorsport AOS, what he's done is it looks like he's put like a little rubber, not outline, but a little rubber edge, and wrapped it around the top of the oil cooler so that when the hose is sitting on it, it's rubber to rubber or plastic to rubber instead.
I wonder if you can't use some of that. They sell it in like sheets that you can. It's almost like a header wrap to wrap the hose in a header wrap where.
I could potentially do that.
Do you have enough clearance to put that? Because that's
thick, it's a little thick, but I mean
that's an area where it could work actually.
It'll definitely keep the hose cool.
So maybe I'll do that. I just
it's cheap.
I didn't know exactly what do you buy in a case like this?
Yeah.
Usually you just kind of look what you have in your garage and.
It's
try
funny
and
when
fab
we
something up.
were working on the water pump on the E1, you saw all of my hoses, and you're like, wait a minute, those are the hoses I need.
Yeah, so Porsche air oil separator hoses. I'm sure most, if not all, Porsches have hoses with the connections and fittings that would fit to a Cayman air oil separator. The question is that would any of those hoses be shaped correctly to reach the areas that need to be reached? And probably not.
Right.
But, it just goes to show maybe if I did, another day or two of research, maybe I could have found an easier solution than what I did. So.
Cool. So on the way to Tech Tactics East, we took a little side trip. We were invited by Joe Fabiani, the owner of Fabspeed. You may recognize the name. They do a lot of things for Porsches, but probably what they're most well known for is creating exhaust systems on Porsches. And it was just really a stop by and say hi. They're a longtime advertiser and sponsor of PCA. And as we've worked on Project 964, he's definitely given us some things to work on with that. But more importantly is I was interested in how do you do all that stuff? Like how do you take a new car and create a exhaust system, or how do you, if the manufacturer has parameters that they have to work within. When you go to the aftermarket world, there's things that you do that maybe kind of opens up the parameters, and for more horsepower, you're willing for it to be louder, or you're looking for a signature tone that's coming out of your car. How do you do it? And Manny, maybe you'll share with them what we saw.
I saw a lot of R&D.
Yeah.
A lot of, like you said, it's you always wonder, how did he create these exhaust systems? And you're looking at it and you're saying, this has to be lighter because he has the factory system next to the his system. And like the GT4RS, it was his own personal GT4RS that's as the test bed, as they keep on trying different bends and different combinations of exhaust canisters, even cats. One of the tools they're using right now is how they make the curved bends while not squeezing the diameter.
Yeah, so go back to that. I think that's probably the thing that
It's
stuck
for
in my
V-bands,
mind.
right?
No. So if you go back to the thing that looked like a worm, Robert, that is what you put inside a pipe when it's straight. And as you bend it, that worm kind of stays inside the pipe. Oh, it doesn't kind of stay. It stays inside the pipe, and it maintains the inner diameter of that pipe, which is known as a
without
mandrel.
it would squeeze it and become
Mandrel
I see.
bend. Like
Yeah.
I've heard about like with my my Mustang and all my mandrel bent pipes were like a big thing, meaning it doesn't pinch off at the corners. Well, how do you do that? I've never known how you do it. They've got that die that sits on the inside, and then look at all the cutaways. Those of you that can't see it on YouTube, there's he basically cuts up all the factory exhaust to understand what the factory is doing in the exhaust, so then he can kind of, I guess, tinker with, and I say tinker and that doesn't sound professional, but they professionally tinker with the exhaust to make it have a signature.
Cutaway there. It's
It's
everything
complicated.
Cayennes to Boxsters, 911s. It was the first thing they do is they see what the factory does and how they can improve on it.
Yeah, and what you're looking at there is an exhaust jig. So if you were to order an exhaust system for, let's say, your 718 Boxster, they don't just have sets and sets and sets sitting in inventory. They actually, once your order comes in, they make it to spec. So yeah, it was very, very cool. I think we'll probably head back there in the near future and do a little bit more.
Last year
behind the
we were
scenes.
twe get out there to do a video, but we just
we
didn't have
wanted
the
to see
time.
what it looked like, what they had to offer, and there was quite a lot that
And
that
the
they
key,
do.
as Manny said, lots of R&D. The key thing is they manufacture a lot of it, or at least assemble it all here in the United States. They have a dyno to make sure that whatever they're doing does. I'm sure there's some things they just do things for audible, right? But definitely when they're creating a power performance exhaust or whatever, they're testing it and making sure that it does in fact make power. So very cool stuff.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yep. All right. Well, let's after that we continued on No coolant was leaking. Car sounded good, and we kept on headed to Easton, Pennsylvania. It was actually quite a rainy day driving there, so it was a good thing that Porsche of Mainline was at Tech Tactics East, because what they do is they set up in the Watkins Glen room where all the attendees can place an order, and guess what? All the parts are on I think the majority of the parts are on the other side of the wall, and I definitely needed new wiper blades. And and during the water pump install, I noticed a lot of my little pin clip things for the decorative panels under the hood. I was missing a lot of those, so they had everything I need. I think, Manny, did you pick up some stuff? Or
I was going to pick up those wipers for the 914. I kept on putting it off. Not that it's an emergency, because I never drive the 914 in rain, so it doesn't matter really if the wipers are gone or not. But it seemed like such a deal when Rolf told us. I think they were like $13 each or something. That, no, actually, I didn't get a chance to.
I know a lot of people did.
They always had a line of people seeing when I walked by.
They did. So shout out to Rolf Kittlitz, Terry, and Mike, the folks at the facility. I think, what was it, 12 years ago?
I will say a shout out to Jeff Price, who's, I believe, the parts director for Porsche Mainline.
Yeah.
Because on Sunday they brought in a bunch of old Originali the books.
Yeah.
I call them catalogs, but they're really books, and they're very collectible. And I told him, I said, I'm still bumming from the fact that years ago they gave me number one when we went to Atlanta, and we were in some meetings, and I left it in one of the conference rooms, and didn't realize until I got home that I left my number one
in
Atlanta. And he was like, I think I have an extra number one. He goes, give me your business card, and I'll mail it to you. And
You're such a hoarder.
I am. Number one is, I told him, I complete the collection now.
Yeah.
Retirement, right?
So we went straight into it. Melanie was with us from headquarters. Robert came up, obviously, for filming for Saturday. Started the setup, and I love going to Easton because they have everything from all the signs laminated, the flow of the crowd, the tables and chairs, like all that is just.
They generally look like they're very happy to see us.
Yeah,
which is a nice thing, Even though they're working on their days off.
Yeah.
They're bringing people to work the warehouse, because when you order the part, someone has to go to that big warehouse and pull it. And they have people giving tours. So, people are giving up their weekend off to come and entertain PCA members.
Yeah, and it was pretty much sold out. It was definitely sold out on Saturday, and I think pretty much sold out.
Short of selling out.
Selling out on Sunday. The presenters, they all did amazing. We changed up a little bit. Some of our regulars had some conflicts, but I don't think it was completely missed, because we had some amazing presenters.
A lot of people walking out said they were very impressed with the presenters, and learned a lot. So it was, and I think the presenters were happy to be there, because they stayed there all day talking to people in the hallways or between sessions. And Ed Gliss from Michelin was like, I love it. He goes, sometimes I go to places and there's no questions or anything, but he goes, sure, people are very engaged, and it was not boring for him, because he was being asked questions the whole day.
Yeah, really engaging group, and I think for the most part we had to pretty much shut down each presentation because people were so engaged. So what we might do, Manny, is go through all the topics that were on for the weekend, and just maybe give some highlights, because down the road we're hoping to publish the full videos, right?
Yeah, so we recorded everything on Saturday. I think the only ones we did not record was John Paterek, because he was in a separate room running the same time as Brian Gay. But we did get everything except that. And hopefully if the video and audio come out fine, we'll post them slowly as time allows through Facebook. So if you forgot what somebody said or wanted to watch it again, you'll be able to. And for those of you who couldn't attend, obviously you don't live near Easton, you'll be able to see these presentations as well.
So the starter topic and sort of the halo topic was really Stewart's presentation, Stewart McLaughlin, and that was the Manthey GT3.
Yeah, he basically started off by telling us all about Manthey, and Stewart's actually from Great Britain, so he got his start in with motorsports and whatnot. So he's very excited to be working with the accessory kit from Manthey. He also brought in the special alignment tools you need to be able to corner balance, to set the special suspension from Manthey. It's a $30,000 system. And I think
I knew it cost a lot.
Last week's podcast, Rolf talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. But they had actually that set up in a room right next to the room where he was speaking. So about 3/4 of the way for his presentation, everybody got up, went around the corner, and then surrounded this car on a lift to talk about how they do the alignments, what the alignment machine does. And I think the guys at the center were excited to see it too because they've heard about it, but they had never used it. So it was a learning experience for them as well.
It didn't grow legs, did it?
They had it high up, so I think. Plus, it looked like this Rockstar roadie case that it came in.
Yeah.
It was really big, so I think it would have been a little. I don't even know if it fit for the front door.
Yeah.
They had to bring it in for the roll-up door. But thank you to Porsche for sending not only the car, but the alignment kit as well. And
and I don't think not every Porsche dealer has this alignment kit, nor are they forced to buy it. But if
only
they want to do
sell,
Manthey,
I think there was.
if you sell 2 Manthey kits, you have to buy it.
Yeah, I think there's 40-some dealers, authorized dealers.
47 when we did our video. I
Oh,
believe.
47. Okay,
So
yeah,
it might be
40
more
something.
now.
So the thing is, Manthey is among Porsche files. Manthey is really well known in rest of world, but I would say that in the United States, it seems like it's fairly new. For those of you that don't know where Manthey came from, they actually started way back when as a let's call them a track support. I wouldn't say aftermarket. It's probably not the right word, but they
Race team, track
they're race
support,
team,
yeah.
race team, and their backyard is literally the Nürburgring, and it started with Olaf Manthey, and as he retired, and as Manthey became more and more critical in motorsports for Porsche said, "Hey, why don't we just own them?"
And
And
bought 51%.
yeah, they
And
own
the Radar brothers bought the other percentage.
and Olaf, I think. So yeah,
Yeah.
51% is owned by Porsche, 9% by Olaf Manthey, and
Yeah.
the rest are the Rader brothers.
brothers, yeah.
And the cool story with the Rader brothers is they were always big fans. They were somewhat kind of competitors.
They had their own team.
Yeah,
too.
they had their
Rader
own team,
Motorsports.
Motorsports, but they had so much respect for Olaf Manthey, and they I don't say it was gifted because I'm sure they had to buy it, but you don't just end up with Manthey, right? So they also had the return respect from Olaf Manthey that they could now be such a large.
From what it
part
sounds
owner.
like, Olaf was able to focus on running the race activities a little more, and then the brothers more of the business in total. They
Right,
run it now.
right.
Olaf does a lot of the racing activities.
Yeah, and they own several buildings in this sort of automotive community that is adjacent to the Nürburgring, and they do soup to nuts. They even have a service center. Like if you were at the Nürburgring and needed your tires or alignment or something like that, you could roll up just like a normal Porsche dealer. But then the parking lot, I can tell you at Manthey, I mean everything starts with a G. GT3, GT4, GT2. I mean, it's all G cars.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So yeah, people learned a lot about that, and I think they learned about how important it is that everything Manthey does to a Porsche, it is done with a very specific purpose. And they're also saying, yeah, it's an expensive option on a GT3, but I think you will find that the expense you pay on a car like that also makes that car very special. And when you go to sell it, the resale value for a Manthey GT3 is also very different from a quote unquote standard GT3.
Well, Stewart pointed out with the record breaking how Porsche will run it, and then Manthey runs their version of it. And
Yep.
that's where you see the records being broken. That's what they specialize in is track.
Yeah, and I think one of the other manufacturers sort of challenged Porsche and say, "Oh, you can't use that record with the Manthey because it's not, something that you produce and make available to GT3 owners or that car's,
It's not a standard part.
right?" So
Yeah.
that's now it is because you can get it through.
I mean,
through Porsche.
you've got to think you can't buy it with the kit, but you can buy it from the dealer after you've bought the car.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask me,
They answered the question.
Yeah, but I still respect those lap times.
Yeah.
Just remember the Carrera RS when that first came out. they were delivering them without the ducktail. After they made 1,000, I think they had to go through a different process where it was no longer approved for the road in Stuttgart. It had to be approved in a bigger city, and they realized that probably the ducktail wouldn't get approved.
Right.
So they were shipping the tail separately.
But it still came with the car.
After you bought the car. Well,
Yeah.
but it was getting approved without a ducktail.
Yeah.
And then Porsche sent the ducktail separately to the owners.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's all in the rules.
It's all in the rules.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Porsche is very good about understanding the rules and where the lines are.
Yeah, but that was a very popular topic, and I think Stewart had a good time interacting with the members. I heard a lot asking how they can get a tour if they go to the Nürburgring. Now that they realize that Manthey is right there.
Yeah.
If you want to watch some impressions of the Manthey GT3, Car and Driver's Lightning Lap actually just had one at VIR, and they give impressions of what it's like compared to.
We just did a video too about Manthey.
We did, but we didn't have any on-track impressions.
But you can get a look at
inside
look at the facilities.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So here's an insider tip, since we got this question a lot during the weekend for the Manthey presentation, is, can I go there and visit? Well, the reality is, their operations doing what they're doing. They don't have tours for individuals, but I still think it's worthwhile, if you're already at the Nürburgring, to swing by that little, like I said, the automotive community, because there's plenty of things to see there. Like there's the Mercedes AMG Test Center, there's Manthey Racing, and you can see everything from the gates.
Well, Stewart gave us a whole overview, like a reconnaissance mission of what buildings and what happened at each building. And
Yeah. So
I thought I was watching CNN in the war room.
Yeah. There's still plenty to see, and they do have a lobby which you can go in, and like I said, they are a Porsche service center, so you can go in and say hi and probably pick up some stuff. But as an official tour, no. But if you're there, it's definitely worth stopping by and taking a look.
If anything, the members who came understood what Manthey is.
Oh yeah,
That it's
for sure.
where it stands in the Porsche world.
Yep. So normally we would in the past have Steve Caldwell from Michelin,
Calder,
Calder, to come in and talk to the attendees about tire technology. Some Michelin, but just kind of where tires are at in the industry. Unfortunately, he had a conflict, and he sent Ed Gliss, and I've met him before. I believe I met him at Works Reunion Monterey, and it was a pleasure to have him. He's comes from the karting world and test driver. For Michelin. He actually represents Michelin in the One Lap of America, so a true car nut. And the one thing that we ask, and it's funny that not everybody gets the answer to this question right, so I'm going to pose it here on the podcast and pause a little bit and let you think about it, and we'll let Manny give you the answer. So the scenario is you need to buy, and you're only going to buy 2 new tires for your car.
Assuming you have a square setup.
Where do you put those 2 fresh tires? Think about it. Give you 2 or 3 seconds. And Manny, the answer is?
Well, for everyone who's not quite sure, I thought the same way you did. First, the question I asked was it front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive? That doesn't matter.
So let me say, because I wasn't there, and I'm just going to say you put them on the rear.
Always in the rear.
No matter what kind of drive the car is.
Yeah,
always in the rear. They even have banners in tire shops that Michelin sends that say always put new tires in the rear. I know people say, well, yeah, but you got to steer the car. Well, you're not going to be steering the car if the rear's not gripping.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where your steering wheel's pointing, the car's not going to go there. It's all the rear. The fronts may have some understeer, but as we know, it's better to have understeer than oversteer where the rear end's trying to come around to the front of the car. But that's the kind of thing that when we were talking with Ed, when we went to the Michelin proving grounds in Greenville, South Carolina, they actually did that exercise with us in the car, and they really show you the difference it makes. But what impressed me about Ed, and I guess Steve too, these guys are all engineers.
Absolutely.
They graduated from a college in engineering as a mechanical engineer, and like you said, he also does racing. He was in the Formula SAE program, And so, and then he went for the qualifications to become a test driver. It's like the 1%, top 5%. You got to set. I would love to do a video just on that because he was going through like you had to do your lap times within so many less than a half second in the professional, and then it went down to like a third of a second within the professional. And he said it's incredibly stressful to be able to cut it and make it all the way to a Michelin test driver, which he was. And part of that is you have to be able to articulate what the tire needs or what the tire is not doing or doing wrong or doing correctly so they can keep on developing the tire. And he did it for quite a few years before he came to the new position that he's at. So basically, he knows what he's talking about. That's the thing. When he would talk about tires, it wasn't some guy that was selling loaves of bread 2 months before, now selling tires. This guy has lived in motorsports and tires and was very much aware. And I think that's probably why, as soon as this time was up, people are still hounding him for questions about tires.
So I know you wrote a tech article, Manny, so I'm not going to place these questions in front of you. I'm going to place them in front of Damon to see, one, if he read your tech article, or does he just simply know the answers?
I said he edits them, so at least he glances over them.
You think. All right, so Damon and listeners, what is NSPEC?
NSPEC is the Porsche-specific tire.
Okay, do you know what the N stands for?
I did when I read his article and edited it, but I don't remember anymore.
Nice save. So the N, Manny, do you remember what the N stands for?
And he wrote
Was it something to do with, is that the letter
simple.
designated towards Porsche?
No. Has to do with the Nürburgring.
Oh, that's what.
Oh,
Well, Porsche
Nürburgring.
uses Endo.
Yeah,
Not
Porsche's-
everyone.
yeah,
You
star
can't
spec
go
for
to Mercedes
BMW.
and say, "Give me an N spec."
Correct. N
but
is
because it'll be
specific
M,
to
I think,
Porsche.
for Mercedes, but
Right.
Porsche chose N
Yes.
instead of
BMW
P.
star spec, so
Yes.
it's all different.
That's what it was.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Now, so after the N on the tire, there's could be a 0, 1, 2, and 3. Do you know what that means?
Different generations.
Different
I
generations.
mean, that's all that matters. I don't care that it's Nürburgring.
Okay, now here's the next one. This was new for me. Do you know what an NA rating is?
North America? No, I'm just kidding.
That's a good guess. Manny,
It's all their model, different models they have.
do you remember what NA is?
I think NA is
Not
911,
available.
isn't it?
It's specific to the 992.
992.
Oh, interesting.
992. NA is 992. Now, here's why it's important. If you haven't read Manny's tech tips with regards to N rated, you can have let's say it's a 285, 35, 19. I'm just making up that tire size, but say Michelin could have that size in a general tire in that size. They have that same size in a N rating. They have that same tire size in an M rating or whatever the other manufacturers use. There's like 7 different unique tires with that same tire size. And when it has an N rating, it's developed specifically for Porsche, meaning the tire compound, where the tire compound changes across
And what
the
axle
treads,
it's going on.
what axle it's going on. So for those of you that are shopping for tires, be very careful and sure, a tire is round and it'll work, but if you're talking about getting maximum performance out of your Porsche, you need to get the N-spec rating because that tire was developed for your car, right? So that's what he was really reiterating. Even don't choose the general Michelin tire for your Porsche. You want the N-spec version.
Here's to give an example of someone who was looking for a certain size tire for the rear of their 911 that wasn't an N-spec, but he found kind of like an N-spec. That it turned out that tire was made for the front of a Corvette. Mm-hmm. So it had all different characteristics on the shoulders and everything. But you look at it, you think, what's the difference? It's the same wear rating. It's a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. What's the big difference? What the design's different?
So I will say, and I don't think that in 2007, I don't believe Porsche had the N rating yet. I mean, that was they did back then?
They did. Oh, for sure.
Okay, cool. So this is actually a good comparison. I didn't buy N-spec PS4S's Michelin's for my Cayman. I run them. I love them.
Yeah.
Could it be better with the N-spec? Probably.
Yeah, it's a hard, but that's a hard statement to say because you weren't comparing them to, and that's people. I guarantee you, people buy the vermicellis that Rob had.
Yep.
Didn't even Rob say they're pretty decent tires?
Tire. If you're driving at 2/10, right, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, a solid, good tire, no matter what the brand, will probably work. But when you're trying to get that extra, or you're braking in an emergency situation, or you're doing autocross or something like that, and you want the maximum performance, that's where it's going to make a difference.
So I did autocross those tires in Palm Springs after road tripping them, and they were fine, but they'd probably be a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I'm sure they are fine. I'm sure they are
So-
fine. They're still as long as they're a quality tire, that's a good thing.
At least you know that it's not a marketing gimmick that they're just putting and hoping you pay extra for the end. There's actually a lot of technology behind the tires.
Yep. The next list, next on the list here is you have the from Barnfind to Beautiful, and I actually sat through this one. This was with John Paterek, and I know we don't have any video on it, but what I will share with you is there was a gentleman who had a 356. I think it was a late 50s 356 that he had in his garage for 30 years, and finally he decided it was time to restore it, and it was this really ugly brown messed up paint stuff all over the car. Anyways, they pulled it out of the garage and they just transformed this thing into as probably better than new, and just showing all the different details that they did. But the takeaway from that presentation, for those of you that are just looking for a highlight, is the trim. A lot of the trim on this car the gentleman wanted to retain, not just for cost reasons to retain it, but also keeping an original, say, stainless or whatever the metal trim is, or the original like knobs and stuff like that. That belonged to the car. Yeah, you can get replacements, but you always want to keep what was original to the car. And a little tip, insider tip for you all that are listening is, do you know what 40 steel wool is? Have you ever used that? 0000 steel wool.
I've never gotten that
You know,
deep into
that's
steel
double
wool.
lot. I mean, that's
Super
clean
fine.
super stainless steel.
Yeah.
But it's called like I think Tim McNair told us
Yes,
about this.
exactly. So, and have
It's
you ever,
4-aught something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and also Blue Magic. I didn't know. He kept on referring to
He-
Blue Magic.
John loves Blue Magic.
I'm like, what is Blue Magic?
Blue Magic is like some people remember that my Fat Creek wedding or something like that.
Uh-huh.
They got a file to use Windex for everything.
yeah. That's-
everything with John.
It's Blue Magic.
Every recommendation John involves a little dab of Blue Magic.
Yeah. So with that, whatever they call the 40 steel wool, which is a super fine steel wool
I think
combined.
it's 4-aught steel
Is it
wood.
4-aught? 4-aught? 4-aught steel wool with Blue Magic, and just carefully go over the corroded steel pieces and brought everything back to new. So I'm going to try it.
I've seen it at some stores, and I keep on meaning to buy just to have it.
Yeah, I'm going to try it. I don't know where you even find Blue Magic, but I guess
Blue Magic?
Google.
Walmart.
Do they still make
yeah.
that? Okay, all right.
Yeah, they still make it. Comes in a little like.
So anyways, he showed
can of
a fantastic restoration, and the gentleman is, back behind the wheel of his beautiful car. Rolf, he's an amazing
Oh, my
wealth
God,
of
he's
knowledge.
I told him, I said, you have your own legion of fanboys that come to this event to hear you speak.
And you know what? I think we're gonna have to try to see if we can't ask Porsche Cars North America, like, can we steal him to bring him to like parade or something like that? He's got so much knowledge. He's a super enthusiast. In fact,
He told us at the podcast he loves to share knowledge. He loves
Yeah.
to teach, and it shows.
Yeah.
I mean, when he asked me, he said, if you want to, he goes, I can do 2 presentations. And I was like, definitely.
Yeah.
I didn't want to wear you out, doing 2 in one day. But since Tom Anderson was in Germany being trained, the other trainer there, Ralph did 2 of them, and I think people loved it.
And if you're looking to see if someone is a true enthusiast, I mean, yes, he's an instructor, right? And he teaches at Porsche Cars North America's training center, but he pulled out his 72 914 to bring to us to share with us. And we just kind of did a quick tour of his car. We didn't do a video or anything like that, but the links that he goes to make
But
things
it's on
right.
our Instagram, though.
Yeah. It's on Instagram. The one power wire, I think it was for the Pertronics. Like, he did upgrade to Pertronics, and the factory wire has a black wire with like red marks every so many inches or millimeters or whatever. He recreated that with his wire.
Wait. Rolf has a non-OEM part on his car?
Well, I guess you can't get
Oh,
that same
man.
wire
Well,
anymore.
he upgraded to electronic ignition, which
Okay,
most
yeah,
people
yeah.
do. I still have the old points, but I keep on saying I'm going to upgrade to
Yeah.
electronic.
But here's the thing with Rolf. He's also like us in the sense
Yeah.
where he doesn't have, unlimited funds to give to somebody and do like 100-point restoration.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
found that car, I think somewhere in the Northeast. It was in someone's garage or something like that. And believe it or not, no rust. And he's just going through it slowly. And
He
it's
does
getting-
have the benefit of having a gigantic warehouse of Porsche parts right behind his desk.
Yeah, but it's not like he can pick and pull. And I mean, he pays
What did he
for
say?
it.
He found suspension.
Yeah.
He would start looking it up, and they would have parts there and it wasn't
That's cool.
like parts from the 70s. It's part of the classic program, and somebody ordered parts. He didn't pick them up, and they were still sitting in the warehouse like original shocks.
Yeah,
that they were-
windshield wipers, right?
Yeah,
windshield wipers, and then also the floor mats
Yes,
on the floor mats.
but I
for
did
the
like
car.
my car, of course, is completely stock. But the thing that I was really thinking about, the thing that scares me the most, is the people coming up behind you and rear-ending you.
Oh yeah, his solution
And
for
so
that.
he
was cool.
he found an LED third brake light that actually sits very nicely and is super bright.
super. Bright.
That I got me to thinking that may be a good investment. Not stock, but boy, you could not miss it. It's right at eye level.
Honestly, Manny, as valuable as your car is, I would do it. It's pretty discreet when it's off, but man, when you tap the brakes, it's on. And if you're worried about it not being original, like it's really just held by 3M tape or something like that onto the window, and then he ran the lead to the brake pedal switch, so you could technically take it all back out if you wanted to. But yeah, safety wise,
If
definitely
Rolf
cool.
did it to his car, then it's okay. Because whenever I talk about, I've got my squared 255 wheel tire setups with this,
That's-
why did you do that? There's
that's-
like hundreds of engineers that
There's-
designed the car
that's
this way.
unreasonable, Damon. Damon, that is
The engineers didn't have third brake lights in 1973.
right, exactly. The other cool little thing was he wanted orange turn signals, but the tail lenses are red, and he found LED orange turn signals, which they obviously light up nice and bright. But then he also wired in resistors so that they would flash at a very similar rate to the original. I mean, those are little details. Again,
It was pretty cool though that he was dying to bring this car out, and
Yeah.
he said in the morning it was wet, and then by lunch it had dried up, so he went home and switched cars and brought the 914 back.
yeah, great looking car, and it's known as Johann.
Nice.
But as far as presentations, Rolf did. He did two. He did one on "Did you know your Porsche did that?" and he did the Porsche tooler. The Porsche tools our dealers must have. And I have a couple of takeaways, but I'll let you go first, Manny.
Well, so him and I were talking about what topics. He had a whole list of possible topics, and I like this one because it's the general topic. It was things that people don't realize that their Porsche has or may do. And I used the example of the rear fog light. I wrote an article about rear fog lights, and I was blown away at Cars and Coffee. How many people came up to me and said they had no idea that their car had a rear fog light. And I said, well, didn't you wonder what happened when you pull your little switch back? And they were like, well, nothing happened, so I figured it must be an option I don't have. And so when I showed them, they were just, it was like you gave them $1,000, like or they found the $1,000 under their seat. They were just blown away that their car had a rear fog light. So he went over things like that. There's little things that, and Ralph has a good, great sense of humor. So he went through the whole thing. He had everyone captivated for the entire presentation of what your car does, what features it has that most people may not be aware of who haven't read the manual front to back. And the salesman may have not covered, or they covered, and it was just too much information to remember. So it was
The probably the overarching theme that he had was read your owner's manual, because a lot of it is in your owner's manual. Rolf said he even read the owner's manual of his, I think it was, did he say, was it not
It was something that had
humidifier or dehumidifier.
Yeah, it only had an on and off switch. That's it.
Yeah, but there was a different power levels when you read the instructions manual or owner's manual. The thing that I came away with for the did you know, along the lines with the lights, you know how like sometimes you turn into a parking lot and you say you have your blinker on the right side and then you actually go to park and it never like reset.
Never cancels out.
It never cancels out, and then your light stays on the right side or on the left side. Damon, any idea?
I do that, yeah. So that maybe not in America as much, but in the narrow streets in Germany, for example, you can park it and your light will be on, so that people passing by.
That's exactly
see your car.
That's exactly it. And also, if you leave your car for an extended period of time, leaving your car there with four-way flashers draws more current than just having those two little bulbs sitting on the outside so that traffic.
Yeah, he said you could basically have it there for like almost 2 days and it wouldn't drain the battery.
No,
it was, but even the stuff that you may have known that you have a flat tire kit, but then he delved into that flat tire kit, how to use it and different things. So just like I'd hoped, it became a session that appealed to not only people that are techie, but people that are new to the hobby and may not realize what their car does. So, that video I think is going to be very popular when it comes out.
The whole idea of not having, people complain, right, about not having spare tires in their Porsches. The reality is most people cannot, either they don't have the strength or they will never ever change a wheel. So why keep that extra weight in there? And so they have of course, the fix-a-flat and the pump in there. But the one thing that you have to decide is it worth it to use that can of Fix-A-Flat? And the biggest consideration is if you use that can of Fix-A-Flat, one, it's only going to fill or hopefully plug a hole. If you have a slice in your tire, obviously it's not going to fix it. But the thing is, if you use that can of Fix-A-Flat, it's hopefully going to plug that hole, but it's also going to plug the hole of your tire sensor. So know that if you use that, then when you go to do the full or correct repair, then you're going to have to buy a new tire sensor. So something I was like, oh yeah, I didn't think.
I've always heard that they're it's pretty nasty stuff. And like you said, absolutely, you're stuck in the middle of nowhere. There's no tow truck coming. That you use this, but otherwise, try to get the tow truck.
One more. I have this one was a customer came in and was wondering why their the engine stop wasn't working.
Yeah, that was a good one.
This is a good one. And I was like, well, I was like, one, I'm thinking that's awesome because I can't stand engine stop. But the person was like, it doesn't work anymore. And turns out the person a tow hitch. There's some tow hitch covers where you can get like a tow hitch cover that has a third brake light or something, and it gets power from the plug. The factory plug for the tow hitch. Turns out when you plug something into the factory tow electrical module, the car goes into a different mode. It goes into towing mode, which defeats the start-stop.
Wow.
Right?
I wonder if it does anything else.
It does a lot of other things too, and he went into it. And I don't remember
changes
all of
your
it.
Gas mileage.
Changes your
because
gas
it thinks you're towing something, so it makes the rev stay longer because it's you don't want to keep on changing gears as you're going up a hill. So it keeps
So
your
my
gear
question
longer.
would it be better for performance or worse?
Didn't sound like it. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it probably would be better for towing, right?
Yeah.
But then it's probably going to be much more of a consumable kind of mode.
Yeah. But if you don't want to have to turn off the stop start every time you get in the car or whatever, then
that's one way to bypass
you
it.
don't want to actually do that if it makes your performance
Yeah, the funny
worse.
thing that came. I said once again, this whole thing came out of us the year before and one before that. I asked him questions, and when you brought up the start stop, that story he told us last year. He was done his presentations, and he was in the other room just talking with members. And I was looking because they had engines on stands, and I was asking him how the start stop works and why does it wear the starter out? And he was saying no, not really, because it stops it right at the top, that center part where that's when you push the button again, it starts right up. And he was showing us, and then he went into the story about, by the way, we found out that if you plug something into the tow hitch, it will not let you do automatic start. So this year when we were talking about topics, we brought that up too, things that people probably don't realize.
And here are just a few examples. The whole presentation was full of that. So I think you'll enjoy that.
There
when it
wasn't a
comes out.
moment when I didn't walk through the this classroom that I didn't see him with at least 3 to 4 people answering their questions.
Yeah, and the tools session that he did, the unique Porsche tools and things that they send out to the dealers, from the torque wrenches to the spring compressors to the suction cup thing to take out your center caps and alignment tools, tons and tons of stuff.
Even the tool to do the alignments, he was showing why the Porsche dealer one will not scratch your wheels up, and the effort they went to stick this inside the hub where the cap is, instead of taking the generic one, which grabs the spokes. Because they did all this just so your wheels don't get scratched in any way. But yeah, that also came from a side discussion last year where he happened to be pulling out some tools to show somebody about this one torque wrench, and we asked him about that tool, and he started bringing them out, and I was like, this could be a topic in itself, just of all the cool tools that you have to have if you're a Porsche dealer.
Yeah, well, whenever I go to Tech Tactics East, at least, Rolf, I've always had at least one question that needed answering, or, he helped me do a quick fix on the Cayman, just to help me get home in comfort without having to worry. He told me the correct way to pull the pulley seal. So yeah, Tech Tactics.
Yeah.
Is a great place to learn things like that.
Tool he's holding it right now, for those watching YouTube, is to set the rear suspension on a 993.
Kinematic toe.
Yeah, and they're unobtainium tools. They don't make them anymore. So he explained earlier that if you're starting a new Porsche dealership, you have to buy all these old tools. You have to. You don't have a choice. So somebody said, well, how do you get those tools? And he basically said you can either rent them from Atlanta, or you better start looking on eBay for someone who may have an extra set.
Yeah.
But they don't make them anymore, but you need them to properly set the rear alignment.
Yeah, so for those of you that own a 993 and you go to get your alignment done, if the people setting your alignment don't understand kinematic toe or have that tool or something like that tool to set your car up, don't use them, because they will not set it up correctly.
It might be. I wonder if the 928 is part of that group too, because it has the Weissach axle. Like
Yeah,
the
he said it's basically by name and by concept, but they don't share any of the same parts, or it didn't sound like this tool was used for the
928.
Yeah,
Interesting.
somebody asked him that in the one of the presentations.
The next topic was a little bit of a departure from our normal tech seminar, and this was brought to us by Lee Giannone with Mecum Auctions. And Manny, I would love your impression, because I invited Lee to Treffen at Sea to present on planning your Porsche's future, and hopefully you listened to it. And what'd you come away with?
It was I guess it was everything you wanted to know about a live auction, and in particular how Mecum does things versus other ways of selling your car. And a lot of people watch Mecum auctions or Barry Jackson, on TV. But what happens after the sale or before the sale, or, hey, if I ever wanted to sell my car, what would be the process? And he kind of went through that, as well as the other services that you probably don't think a company like Mecum would offer that they do as well. It's Lee's been a 30-year PCA member, 25-year PCA member, collector, racer, and whatnot, big Porsche person. All I know is that each session we had to basically drag Lee away because we were running up to the next speaker and people still had their hands up to ask him questions.
Yeah, and what I love about Lee and the way he does it is he also is an enthusiast, and this was not a sell on Mecum auctions at all. It was just educating on people what are the benefits of having an auction house, any auction house, handle either the selling of your car or what you can expect they will do when you go to purchase the car. And I think a lot of it has to do with making sure that the car is what it's represented to be, and then also making sure that the transaction afterwards is somewhat guaranteed that it's going to happen. And it could be anything with the transfer of the funds or the title work. Like when they sold, I think they sold 4,000 cars at Kissimmee earlier this year. That means they've held the title to 4,000 cars and made sure that the VINs, they have VIN inspectors.
I forgot what percentage they financed, which I didn't realize they did that.
Yeah, so you go to Mecum, and this is a little bit Mecum specific, but let's say you find that dream car of yours, they will actually break it down into a monthly payment, and they will finance the car for you.
I thought, wow, that can get dangerous.
Super dangerous.
I thought you had to have the cash on hand or in your bank to be able to. Nope,
Yep,
they can.
Those cars are pre-qualified.
After a
for
couple
Mecum
beers, you see that speedster you always wanted.
I just need to stay at that $800 a month level
Oh man.
for 40 years.
Yeah, it was. Afterwards, I had people coming up to me telling me their nightmare stories about online auctions, and not so much that what they got wasn't represented, but rather where they were either buying or selling, and the buyer or seller flaked out.
Yeah.
Like one guy said, he bought one at auction, and the guy went from telling him he had to pay him in all $100 bills to saying, the bank owns the title, so you need to pay them off first, then you pay me, and making life as difficult as possible. And so finally the guy said, you know what, I really don't want to sell this car. So he had second thoughts, and there's nothing that can be done other than, the online auction can put a black mark on the person. I mean, either not let them sell, but the buyer's kind of screwed. It's not like a live auction where Mecum has a title, so the buyer can't say, well, I changed my mind, I don't want to give you the car, so your car is sold for too low. And that's one of the main differences between that and the live auction is that the live auction is hammer goes down, you bought a car, you sold a car.
Yeah. Online auctions, that's the one thing is that they're less money to list your car and sell it. They're the live or the online auction is usually taking a smaller fee or percentage of the sale price, and they cap it out. But you're also getting fewer services to help facilitate that sale.
It's really your comfort level of how much you want full service versus the dollar amount that you spend at the end, and there's one for every attitude, I guess.
And for the consumer, it's great because we have a choice.
We have a choice, exactly.
And Lee was somebody asked Lee, has Mecum looked at online auctions, and essentially said for Mecum they don't have to. Like he said, they did 4,000 cars at one auction. They are so busy with the live auction that there hasn't been a need or a call for them to get into online auction. They are kept very busy because it's not like they do it once a year. I think it's like at least once a month, and then they're going someplace else.
Like
and it sounds like a very busy job of coordinating all these cars.
Yeah, and they also have a feature at their auctions where the sale goes on, where if you're watching on TV, a car doesn't meet reserve, those cars can actually go into a lot where buyers can then negotiate with the sellers. So it's still safe for the seller because it has a reserve, but they can actually go, and he says a lot of the transactions take place in that lot. They'll sell the car even though it didn't hit reserve, and they have that conversation between the buyers and the sellers. I would like, if you don't mind, rewind back to, because we didn't talk about what I came away with Rolf's tools presentation. So you know how when you pull a wheel off your rotor, like I use a wheel hanger alignment tool, and it's basically a pin that you put into where the lugs go, and it's important that it's smooth so that it slides off of your axle.
The one Robert has, Rolf would not approve of that
because it's not smooth at the end.
It's not smooth at the end, even though it says for Porsche, Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have one. I use one, and it's good, but I never thought about the placement of it and using two of them, and that's what Rolf said. Rolf said always use two and place them at the bottom of the rotor, because I've done this before where I put it at the top, and when I'm lining up my wheel, the rotor spins, and then it crashes into the caliper, and you could scratch the caliper. So he says always use it at the bottom and use two of them, because one, it won't want to spin because it's already at the bottom, and when you guide the two studs or whatever to the bolt holes, it just always goes straight on. So literally, when he finished that statement, I went in and I bought the second one.
He used the example when he was younger and starting in the Porsche world. He put a big chip in a big red caliper.
Yeah.
Porsche caliper, and the dealership had to buy a new caliper because he just used one, and the rotor moved, slipped, chipped the caliper. So he said now to this day he always puts two of them in, and he says, don't use a wheel nut and think that's going to
Right.
So it's going to work because that has the threads, and you're going to scratch the aluminum as you're putting it in.
Right.
So use everything smooth so you don't scratch anything.
Hopefully, I'm sure the amount of purchases on Amazon or at the dealer is going to go up after people listen to this.
Yeah.
I was like, I got to do it. Like, I'm not even going to even mess around. The next seminar was Lake Speed Jr. Many of you have seen the videos we've done with him. He is our favorite tribologist, as we always joke, because he's really the only tribologist I know. But he lives and breathes everything oil, and he talks about oil additives. And I have a takeaway, but I'll let you go, Manny.
My takeaway is I'm definitely going to, I haven't done this, is get my oil diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
I have.
Speed diagnostics.
As somebody said, he goes, I don't know if I really want to find the answer.
Ignorance is bliss.
Like a blood test. Do I really want to know whether
I
positive
did
or
actually.
negative?
And my car responded to better oil, and now it was always good, but there was a little bit more fuel dilution, I think it was, or oxidation, one of the two. And when I switched to the better oil, all good, and I know my car.
That's what he actually brought up, was how much of a difference. He was totally against engine flushes, which crushed me because I've been dying to try the Seafoam.
Oh,
But he said just switching to better oil or a different grade of oil can really change your results the next time you test it. And so, yeah, I'm going to have to either take the good news or bad news and have the oil tested.
yeah, and it's the speed diagnostic kit. They send you a kit. It's super easy. They give you even gloves, I think, and show you how to
gloves.
undo the drain bolt, let it run a second or two, and catch your sample, submit in. And the difference with speed diagnostics, they have a lot of Porsche specific data, and that's what's key, is comparing your oil to the relative sample size of other Caymans, let's say for Damon's.
And just like blood tests, you should look to do more than just one, meaning you want to be able to compare your own data, just like you do blood tests where they can say, well, this was present a year ago and nothing's happened, so it hasn't gone up or gone down, so we may not have to worry about it. But I think a lot of people are talking about that they were going to try that as well. But Lake's always a popular speaker, great presenter.
He's also brand agnostic, right?
Yeah.
He talks about things that he's used that has worked well. And probably the thing that I remember most is PEA, polyetheramine. That is the key, no matter what brand of additive that you're using.
Fuel additive.
Right? Fuel additive. It has to have PEA. If it doesn't have PEA, you might as well not.
I was at Walmart looking for the fuel conditioner for the winter. My wife goes, "What are you trying to look for?" I'm like, PEA.
PEA. Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking for the word PEA.
Polyetheramine. And if you're wondering whether or not when you need to put this in with a full tank of gas, put it in and then fill it up so you have a full tank of gas. You run the complete full tank through it. Then the question is, do you need to then immediately do your oil change? And I double checked with Lake, and he says, nope, just use it with your, change your oil with your regular interval, and you're good to go.
I do it on all my snowblower, my lawnmower, everything. I put that.
Yeah. So in addition to cleaning, it's also a stabilizer.
Yeah. Well, I use Stable, which has PEA.
Yeah.
And gives me a peace of mind at least. That,
Exactly.
It's so hard to find what is in different types of oil. An oil company is not going to tell you what's in their oil. You can go to their website. You can look on the bottle. You have no clue what's good or what's not. And Lake is brand agnostic, but because of that, when he recommends a product, I use it. And so therefore I use the oil that he's recommended. But if you want to do some of your own research, and I know that Lake has mentioned this website and this institute before, but the Petroleum Quality Institute of America has a website called pqia.org. And while they won't have test results for every single oil, they have it for a ton of oil. So if you want to know how much molybdenum, molybdenum, I forget the other word, disulfide or something. No, let's just call it moly. If you want to see if there's moly in your oil or in the oil that you want to put in your car, check pqia.org. for example.
They're always asking about moly and zinc, right?
Yep, and zinc. And, zinc is not all that important for an M97 engine, for example, or M96, but moly is.
Right.
So,
and then our final presentation was given by our PCA technical chair, Brian Gay.
Yep, and Brian's also a club racing scrutineer. They're the ones that make sure that everyone's adhering to the rules.
And a racer.
Yes, and he basically described on what you need to get, to buy, to make your experience better, be it for track or eventually if you want to go to club racing, and focusing on safety as well as performance. And you can see on the screen here, I'm sure Damon is recognizing that, upgrades for...
I've pretty much done all of the upgrades that are on the screen right now.
So here's the thing. What I like about Brian is, like much of us, understands that the Porsche that you've bought really has way more potential than probably your driving potential. So before you go out and make certain changes to your car, make sure every system in your car is, with brake fluids, tires, tire pressures, safety components, belts and stuff like that. Take care of all that stuff first before you go out and start changing, to brake pads or tire, R compounds, because there's a lot that you can do with what's already on your car.
Yep.
Yeah, but to get started, a helmet.
Helmet, number one.
Yeah.
Helmet and brake fluid on your
Yep.
your brakes if you haven't done it recently. But if you just want to get started at the beginning, in fact, I know as an instructor, we would just shudder when we saw a newbie show up with the R compound tires, because the R compound tires they handle differently and hard to read than regular street tires. Where street tires give you plenty of warning when they're about to go. R compound, that's more narrow. So just get the helmet.
All right. Anything else? Final words with regards to Tech Tactics East before we go into...
Big shout out again to all the presenters and everyone at the training center who made this possible, and of course all the attendees. We'll be doing another Tech Tactics at Parade. This time we're moving it from the Friday of Parade to Wednesday. This allows us to do more things with Porsche and get use some of their speakers, which is I think going to be much more exciting. It's set up very similar to what we do at Tech Tactics, except we're just going to have one big classroom for Parade Tech Tactics. And I think with some of the speakers we have lined up so far, it's going to be a pretty good day of tech information. And you don't have to have a PhD in Porsche tech to be able to understand or participate. We try to make it general topics so everyone, it doesn't matter what skill level you're at, you're going to take away something good from it.
All right, then we have already shipped all of our items and getting ready to get on a plane because most of us won't be driving to Works Reunion. By the time you listen to this podcast, Works Reunion and Amelia Island would have already happened. But certainly we will be doing maybe some walkthroughs for...
so we know we're going to do a walkthrough of the Porsches, rare Porsches at the Broad Arrow auction, which we've already identified some of that. I can't wait for that. Some pretty cool stuff like the roof cars. It's going to be a pretty good video. Then we're going to do the normal walk around of interesting Porsches at Works, and maybe if we have time, maybe see if there's interesting colors also. We can do. So there'll be a lot of content that comes out of Works Reunion.
Damon, videos, any updates?
Yes, so obviously we will have at least one video from Works Reunion, or I guess Amelia Island weekend, coming out the week that you listen to this. So after the podcast, but same week. And by the time you've listened to this podcast, we will have a video of a 911 GT tribute. So a 993 GT2. And it's owned by somebody named Nish Pillai. He's local to Florida, and you'll probably, if you were at Works Amelia this year, you probably saw it on Friday. But it's a very cool build. All OEM GT2 and GT2 Evo parts, from suspension to intercooler to Inconel exhaust from the Evo. But he maintains the turbos all-wheel drive, so that he can drive it wherever he wants, whenever he wants.
Nice.
So hopefully you enjoy that video.
All right. I think we'll go into. We only have one news item just because we've gone pretty long here, and it has to do with convertibles.
That was because we recorded this on Friday, the one with Rolf, and now we're recording another one 3 days away, and there wasn't a whole lot of news in between those couple of days. But I did see where Porsche became the number 1 seller in the Korean market, which I assume means just South Korea.
Yeah.
Unless something's happened in North Korea we weren't aware of.
In the convertible market.
Convertible.
They just said Korean market, but let's say they beat out BMW, who's and Mercedes, who have always been the dominants in convertibles. So it wasn't by much. I think a couple hundred, maybe.
I gotta say, Porsche has done a great job in aligning themselves with the Korean market. There's, I guess I'll say it, but I watch K-dramas and I listen. You know, my kids listen to K-pop. I listen to K-pop as well. And
Do you watch telenovelas or just K-pop?
I watch telenovela too.
Because as a Hispanic, I don't watch telenovela.
You don't? Oh my gosh, I do. I don't know. I don't know.
My telenovela is I'm watching right now is Drive to Survive.
Ah, okay. But anyways,
So you watch K-pop or listen to K-pop and watch, these Korean dramas, but you don't watch anime?
I don't watch anime. Yeah,
man.
I don't know why. But they've aligned themselves with a lot of the big names in Korea, and I can tell that it's definitely influenced the population in what is the luxury brand, what's cool. A lot of the dance videos you see Porsches in the background, and even our friend Mr. Alexander Fabig was in the launch of Blackpink's Taycan, or I think it was Blackpink's Taycan. And that was like such a big deal. Like my cousins even knew about it. They're like, "Oh, what's that new Porsche that Blackpink got?" And I'm like, "Yep, there you go." So, no surprise there. As far as events, we have Porsche Parade Phase 1 that is currently open, and that's really just to say that you're going and to get your link to be able to secure your hotel, and then we will go to Phase 2. We also have Treffen at Sea now getting ready to surpass 800 members that are registered to go to Alaska. So that'll be a lot of fun. For those of you that are looking to do some racing inside, since it might be cold or dreary out, or just want to be competitive in racing with some PCA members from all over the U.S. and Canada, and sometimes they have races with other clubs around the world, check out PCASimRacing.com. I failed to mention the newsletter, so this would be a great time to make sure you signed up for e-brake news, Mark Fresh news, and performance news. You can do all of that at PCA.org. And obviously, if you enjoy the podcast, we love it when you give us a like, comment, and subscribe. We have things for sale on the PCA web store, which is T-shirts, I believe a bottle, a mug, and if you want a PCA Insider set of decals, all you have to do is send an email to podcast@pca.org. Let us know where for us to send them to, and then you can stick them on your favorite Porsche or toolbox or wherever you might want to show your love for the podcast. Let's see. Anything else, gentlemen, before we sign off and go packing for Amelia?
Nope. Let's hope it stays dry.
Yes, fingers crossed for a dry.
Of course, you're going to be in heaven because you can put on your yellow boots. And the girls say to take a lot of pictures of you put the whole yellow outfit on. I said, I don't think I've ever seen the yellow outfit.
I don't have a full yellow outfit. And what he's referring to is when I do events at PCA, oftentimes we're there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and there's lots of dew on the golf courses and stuff like that. So the thing I hate the most is wet socks. So I have these very bright yellow boots that I wear in the morning, and as soon as the sun comes up and the dew and surface is dry, then I switch to my regular
The look
shoes.
on Manny's face right now as you say that.
Like he's trying to make an excuse why he's wearing the Elton John shoes all day.
And with that, thanks for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Grab your VIN and head over to PCA.org and become a member. And if you're looking for that special Porsche for your driveway or garage, we have the test drive program. Again, head over to PCA.org. Remember to follow our podcast Instagram page, behind the scenes photos and videos, Porsche Club Insider, all one word. You can always send us a message, email us at podcast@pca.org. And again, we love reading your comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. I think we are getting very close to 90,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're, of course, chasing that 100K mark. So with that, until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.